Yeah, I definitely think you can keep the IQ on the IQ on the short list too. Da 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 da. What else? NTNX. All right. Yeah, so you get a little bit of gap down in the market today. You know, you're holding this trend line pretty well, but you're busting back below. So I think the kind of the key of this bad boy is going to be, Braxton, what up? The key is going to be, do we hold at this 50 SMA again? Man, you can only test levels for so long. You know what I mean? You got 1 test, 2 tests, 3 tests, 4 tests, 5 tests, 6 tests, 7 tests. 8 tests, 9 tests, whatever. It's been tested on and off, but, the more it tests it, the more word you got to get, but it just seems to really like that. So, we're gapping down a little bit today, but we may just very well come right back down to that 50 SMA and then bounce up. So don't get too aggressive on the shorts, especially on a gap down. What you want to do is start to see how it starts to act around, that 50 SMA, and you'll be good to go. That's going to be kind of the key today is like, do we come down and then start to round our way back higher? One thing to kind of think of like in this market is that the market has been really strong. Like the dips do get bought in it, especially intraday when you get big spikes. You're not necessarily always getting the follow through that you need. So just something to kind of just keep like in your mind is like, the follow through on some of these bad boys doesn't always come to the short side, but there are a lot of stocks that are kind of moving down with the overall market on the QQQs. You're starting to see some weakness in China names, and you're starting to see some weakness in some other stuff too. And so that's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on. Looks like the big news play for today is this AMRN. This thing is gapping up like 300% here. I'm not sure if this one holds or not. It's up 281%, and frankly, the float on this one could be higher. TC doesn't even list one, but if anybody wants to look it up, you'll be able to kind of find that thing going. So, it'll be a little bit tricky to kind of just go in and I don't have any hair. How can I look like Ross? So we'll have to see if this one holds. But I'd be doubtful if the float is in the $200-300 million range, 200-300 million share range. Most likely, it's probably going to have a tough time holding. Let's take a look at Exxon here. So this one's breaking out of its trend line on some news here. It says it's Exxon and China has made advances in production of medical cannabis. So it may catch a little burn today, but it's already starting to fade pre-market, which I don't like. When they start to fade off pre-market, what usually happens is, you get all that pre-market resistance, and sometimes they don't hold. So I, keep an eye on it, but this thing is already fading back, and it doesn't help that, right? Like all the other weed stocks are already gapping down. They're just getting crushed anyway. So that may add like a little bit of extra sell pressure on that Exxon. Thank you, Mr. Olson. I appreciate that float number. So there'll be something to kind of just keep an eye on, but I'm not sure on that one. You're seeing a lot of China stocks break range here, so watch this Billy here today for a short. You've got 3 tests of this trend line, and you got 2 moving averages right here that it may break back under. So, that could be something that that could be something we keep an eye on for the short side. You're also seeing IQ really test this kind of trend line a few different times. You're actually busting below it already pre-market, so we'll watch this one for an ORB or at least a quick pullback buy. One thing I've noticed with IQ in general is if you chase it too low on the short side, it tends to bounce. So I would actually look for the gap down and then the kind of a pullback to the 9 EMA or that gap fill to kind of keep that thing going. Hey, Johnny Vale, what's going on? How you doing? We'll take a look at those too. I also got the CY on the watch list. Looks like they've got earnings out today or something along that end, but you got multiple tests, 1 test, 2 tests, 3 tests, 4 tests of that kind of 15 area. That's going to be, frankly, if it stays below 15, I think we could start looking at this for the short side. So that'll be something to kind of keep an eye on today. Semiconductors, been hot all year, but what you're starting to see on the semiconductor index is really kind of a topping out pattern over the last, so many months, even with the market at highs. So, this CY may actually have some follow through. The key is going to be like when you see that stuff, it's got to actually break below. It's got to break below the actual. It's got to break below the actual support on the daily chart. So like if you get a gap down play and you're like shorting it here and it hasn't actually broken down on the daily, they don't necessarily follow through that well. So that's something to always keep an eye on. When you're taking a long or a short, you want to make sure on the daily chart it's moved clean past its levels. Otherwise, you'll be shorting inside the range or longing inside the range. And then, yeah, you're just not ready for it. And so they end up being kind of duds. So just something to kind of keep an eye on. Yeah, you're seeing the market still on support here. A little gap down in the S&P, a little bit more on the QQQs. But, overall, the structure of the market looks just fine. We'll just have to kind of keep an eye on things. This NTNX is getting shredded already pre-market. You can see you've got a bear flag right on the daily chart. You've got multiple tests of the resistance, and you got that kind of 200 SMA on top here. Now you're breaking back below this level, so you may get some follow-through on this one. I'll be watching this one for an ORB also. NTNX does tend to move clean. It kind of moves a little bit like Squarespace where, even though the float's not low, it's got really good range and really good volume, and so it's an easier trader. Oftentimes we get so carried up with I want to trade low float, low float, low float. But sometimes the smoothest plays are those with a little bit higher float and then just volume. Hey, Guarav, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. What's up, Can't Sleep? All day, what you got? Yeah, let's take a look at OGen. So OGen is coming out of this big base here. You're already kind of gapping up. You may have room to 150 on this. I wouldn't chase this thing up. Remember with something like this, like you never want to chase these things. The float on this is under 1 million shares. So it can move, especially if the volume sustains. But you've got to wait for a pattern, right, intraday. So don't just buy it to buy it, right? Something like this could have the heat. But what you want to see at that open, right, is watch for that pattern right at the open. I'd wait for an ORB on this one. With sometimes these kind of dollar stocks, one of the things to kind of keep mental note of is when you get the dollar stocks, they often do ORB on the 1-minute chart. So you may have to look at a 5-minute chart and a 1-minute chart on something like an OGen because it's going to move fast just due to the volume and the flow. So that's something that, that's something that we can do anytime you want. Grub, I'm in the chat room all day trading. So you're more than welcome to come in and hang out, of course. Boom, 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 boom. What else we got here? You know what? A couple people asked about the ASTC. This one looks like a dud to me because it had that nice day. I actually put it on my list, but now it's already kind of fading back. And so that's going to be something really to keep an eye on. I take that off the list. If you like small caps, so the CVM may go today. I'd keep a watch out for a breakout over 4. That one could be good. HIIQ, 1 test, 2 test, the 3rd test over here of a break of resistance up 6% yesterday. The only thing on this one is 1 million shares in volume is just a little bit light for me. It's right on that sweet spot. I try not to trade under 1 million, but it looks good. I know a bunch of people mentioned this ALLK. I got on my watch list too, but if you look at the intraday chart on it, see these spaces here? This makes it a tricky trader. The only way I would take this, hey TNA, the only way I would take this is if I saw like a big spike in volume. Because when you get spaces like this, what's going to happen is you're going to get, number one, a spread. And then you're also going to just have a lack of liquidity. It's easy to get stuck in these things. And so I'll take this one if and only if, that liquidity comes in. Like, I need to see like 500,000 shares of this thing come in right at the open. Hey, Henry. Yeah, opening range breakup. If you go in on our YouTube channel, you'll see some videos on it. But that's one of our patterns that we like to use at the open. ACAT, I got this on my watch list, but it's already gapping up a little bit pre-market. But I'm actually thinking maybe short at this 200 SMA. You're already up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row, that extra push into the 21 spot may trigger a short. So, don't just short it to short it, but what you start wanting to do around that 21 area is start to see if you start getting a little bit of a rollover pattern, or watch it for a green to red, right? So it's up, it's gapping up a little bit here, 30, 40, 50 cents. See if it taps 21. If it goes green to red, then you may get a good short on this one. It should have the range on it. Now, it is really strong, but and overall, we'll probably want to buy this thing on a pullback. But you're seeing a really overbought level, right? 96.66 stochastics is an extreme overbought, and so that's going to be something that you've got to keep an eye on. When you're that extended, you can often roll over. So just something to keep an eye on. This TDOC looks pretty good. This looks like more of a swing trade setup over here. So probably not something I'm looking to day trade, but more of a multi-day hold. If you break over this trend line over here, you can put a stop at the 9, risk maybe about $2, and get yourself into another breakout. Healthcare stocks, they move okay. They're just not the best day traders. They tend to act like better swing traders. So something to keep mind of. I'm watching this BE too, but one thing I'm noticing is every time it tests this resistance, you see these topping tails on the candles, like these big tails. It's getting shredded back like $2 every time it hits the resistance. So I'll have to keep an eye on this. I'll only hit this if it actually breaks out. Anything under the breakout, I won't hit it, because somewhere at that 33 level, somebody shredded that thing, right? Somebody's shredding that thing and selling it. And so we definitely don't want to get stuck in it. So only if it breaks over 33, and if it can do that, then it's going to be really good. CRC, you got 3 tests of this trend line. You want to break and hold over this trend line. You're already starting to see pre-market that it's already over the trend line. So now this thing moves pretty well. So if you like to trade oil stocks, this is the only one that I think really moves okay. Watch this one for an ORB at the open too. This one does move fast. Or we've got kind of a $2 gap. If it gaps up and pulls back to that 9 EMA, look for that quick pullback buy. Lulu, this one's shaping up, but I'm only going to take this thing if and when it gets over 160. If I see intraday setups under 160, I'll leave it alone, because retail stocks suck to trade, but Lulu in general does have an okay range when it's in breakout. Otherwise, it's kind of a dud. So just kind of keep mind of that. Always set kind of an alert. So on your TC2000, whatever, set yourself a little alert. If it breaks over, you'll get alerted and you'll be good to go. And this Arlo, I'm watching for a bounce today. This thing's down like 8 days in a row. If you get one more big shred down, you get a 1 stochastics on this thing. I do think we could probably pop back and go red to green on this. And then watch this ABEO for a potential short today. You got multiple tests of that support over here. You've got a lot of room to fall if you look below. Got shredded on Friday. So this one's opening up green. Watch this one for potential green to red. We may get a little bit of action on that one. A bunch of people have been asked about this XS. XS looks pretty good too. Not anything that special, but you can see if you bust right over that level, it could definitely go. I'm going to add that to my list too. So that's not too bad. And, Netflix and all that looks all right. But Netflix is stuck in a range. When you're stuck in a range, you don't want to take it unless it's starting to break below levels. So that's just something always to kind of keep an eye on. The focus list will be this ACAD, Exxon, and then all these Chinese stocks along with NTNX, which I think will have some juice on it too. So it's Monday. So go out and be good. Go out and be great today. Let's go make some money. So we had an okay week last week. Friday was a good day. I think we ended up with, what, $1,500? But we'll have to kind of come in and see if we can keep continuing all that fun stuff. There's a lot of action in this market right now, so let's go out and get what's ours. As they say, it's time to put the women and children to bed and go hunting for dinner. My friends, I shall see y'all when I see y'all. Peace.